Pension liabilities. Oh, let me see, what do we got here? See, who's wanting to take a stab at this? A pension liability. You hear silence up here, right? It's like,
Okay, first of all, I think let's break it down. So the question isn't about how to record pension liability specifically. It's about I've got a pension liability for certain employees. So I have, what is LIPH? I get LI, low income public housing. Is that what's meant by that? For which we pass operating subsidy, but we do not have ownership. Now the question is, let's go back to who has the liability. What did he say yesterday? Dave said, where's that legal liability reside to pay for the employee? My guess is if I read this correctly, you're passing operating subsidy down there, but does that mean you have legal liability for the employees at that site receiving the subsidy to provide benefits? That's the first, that's what it really comes down to is legal liability. Who has to pay those benefits?
Are the benefits the same?
Yeah, are the benefits the same? All that kind of conversation.
All these packages the same. And so, many times, yes, they have the same benefits, the same health, same retirement benefits. And so from that, we're kind of saying what? It looks like we may have a liability, right? So then the question is, where should we record the pension liability for those employees?
Did I get it to the site? Because I only have a 1-year renewable contract, but I think if we're talking about employees at the site, I may not have a legal liability for them anyway. Are they my housing authority employees? Does the housing authority have that liability? So now the second part of that is I don't want to record it on the COCC. No wonder, right? But here we're back to the age-old question about what happens when they tell me, here's Utah. So Donna brought this, she had the sheets from the state of Utah. They're listing out, I guess she just put this and you sorted it among housing authorities? Okay, they sent it just like this, okay? So she shows up here with a thing that says net pension liability at, they're assuming a 7.5 discount rate. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's somewhat mid-range in their estimate, right? I'm not here to debate that. So I'm looking at the housing authority here, hers, Provo, $467,000 and $630. So that's her liability, her net pension liability. She's got to bring that liability on the books. Guess what? Half of those people are long gone. Most of those are long gone. Are you still providing similar benefits to the people on site now? Or you have a new benefit package for new hires? So they get a different package? Okay. Guess what? A lot of these liabilities probably, where do they end up staying? Depending on the split, but we don't know how to allocate. So GASB gave no guidance on allocation to anywhere. So at the bottom line, this sits somewhere. It could be at the COCC, but the COCC doesn't have funding. So you're back to this age-old question. Are most of these low rent? How many are voucher or whether program? GASB they've washed their hands of the whole matter, right? They're saying we care that the primary government has a net pension liability, if that's what it is. We want your net pension liability on the books. And which would amount to what? We're creating it ex nihilo. Yeah, we're going to credit the net pension liability, and she debits equity. Ta-da! I just lost $500,000 in net position. Again, how do you split it?
I've seen people come in and average payroll cost, using payroll as the cost driver between them. We've seen that. My issue is a couple of issues. Number one, most governmental entities, they always have a general fund, right? We don't.
Which is where these would sit.
The
At some level.
COCC, a lot of us don't have a COCC, so we have no place to sit that liability at, so we have no place but to park it, but at the low rent and Section 8 level here. In some cases here, remember that we set up that other AMP. That might be a place to park some of the liabilities for these related properties. So we're not showing it from that perspective.
Chris, can we use our current salary benefits allocation schedule?
You know, I think I would go back a couple years and come up with kind of a rolling average. This is just me talking off the cuff here. I don't think 1 year would be sufficient with the budget constraints and the cuts that have been made. I'd like to get a rolling average to come up with a little bit better of a rate.
And Donna, let me say this, and for the life of me, I can't put my mind on this. There was a Q&A document, a Q&A document issued for 68. For the life of me, there is a restriction on certain allocation methods. Maybe somebody can refresh my memory who's looked at it. It's been 2 weeks since I read it, and I'm going, I forgot because I wasn't doing 68 today. I've purged it from today's RAM. But I'll let you know, because there are some things about saying certain things that seem to make sense. I remember very clearly going, that makes sense, but it's not allowed. And so email me, okay? Or maybe in the answer to this, here's what I'll do. Kathy, can you help me? Just take a note. Les needs to provide GASB, for the Q&A, Les will supplement it with the GASB Q&A on what they have on allocations. Because there's a prohibition on certain allocation things that really on the surface make sense. I will add that. I just don't have it today. And I'm not going to try to look it up right now. I'll fumble all through that. Now, the other thing about booking, so tax credit things, again, how do you handle pension liabilities for them? They're going to follow a different model, aren't they? They're under GAAP. I mean, they're under FASB GAAP, most of them, right? So you need to get your PG statements correct. What's left out of that is nobody knows how to make your FDS reflect that. We don't know. And quite honestly, as much as Nick tries to get the FDS to GAAP, it's not GAAP. So you may have differences between FDS that you'll have to add to the comment section about reconciling items between primary government statements in the front, FDS schedules in the back, where you put certain things. What we do know, though, is we're not managing current and long-term liability differences. It's just there. The bigger problem, of course, is absorbing market changes. So the next question about recording is we get down here about contributions. And I think we talked about this last year, right? We disabuse ourselves of all worries about the ARC. Really, the difference in P&L for the next year, so you record your liability, you go back, implement beginning of the year adjustment, right? And you get the measurements all in place, and they even give you the deferreds, which was marvelous. I'm very happy for Utah to have done that. Some places are hit and miss. So they'll give you the deferreds, and after that, you're managing, the only thing you're managing is the difference in liabilities is your P&L. Okay, so contributions are contributions. That's a cash flow issue, but it's not a P&L item. Go ahead, Ron, go ahead.
In multifamily, I hardly ever see that the employees are employees of the project.
Yes.
Always employs the management agent, and the management agent is always responsible for all their benefits and everything like that. And so, and you would not be able to, most of these tax credit entities, you would not be able to pass down any pension liabilities to them because they don't even have employees.
Yes. So my next question about projects was just simply how many of them actually have legitimate employees versus employees of the management entity. Okay, so a good share of this would be zero at tax credit.
This just goes to show that you need to be carefully assessing the true cost of your employees and charging the tax credit properties and charging them an accurate rate. So often they seem to forget about pension liabilities. This should help you remember pension liabilities and charge for them. There's no problem with that, and get reimbursed, but then you've got the long-term liability.
Now, thank you, Ron, for pointing this out. We get caught up in the idea of management fees and employees. When you go to multifamily, you put a site person on site, guess what? That's not under the management fee. They're covered as a direct employee of the project. Maintenance people that work on site, direct costs. You're able to pay all the benefit costs of those benefits directly to the project. None of this has anything to do with management fee. So they become employees of the project at that level. If they are, sometimes if they're covered at the management company, you bill the management company, bills you directly for it, not in their management fee rate. Those are direct frontline charges to be paid, not considered under the management fee. So you do get that extra billing.
One comment, just real quick. The FDS schedule that was released this week, the financial reports under the FDS schedule are not working in Excel. Okay, so I talked to REAC a little bit earlier. You cannot download any reports in Excel. You can still download them in PDF. But then you got to run a PDF conversion program to Excel, and it doesn't clean it up nice and neat like we're accustomed to. So they're aware of the issue. They said they've turned it over to IT. That's all we know. Okay, but it is not working in Excel on the new release.